Let me ask you something. Have you ever had one of those days where everything is going just fine and then, bam, one small comment, one tiny setback, and it feels like your whole world is crashing down? If you're nodding along right now, well, you're in exactly the right place.
Welcome. In this explainer, we're going to talk about how to go from feeling that fragility, what some people call having a glass heart, to building a truly unbreakable spirit. So let's jump right in and figure out how we can forge that real inner psychological strength.
So here's our game plan. First up, we'll figure out what this whole glass heart thing is all about. Then, we'll get to the good stuff, the antidote, which is psychological resilience. After that, we'll break it down into 3 key pillars, see how to use them when you're facing failure, and finally, we'll totally reframe what it even means to be broken. Okay, let's start with part 1. Is your heart made of glass? And this isn't just a saying, you know? It actually describes a very real psychological state, basically a lack of what we call resilience. So, what is a glass heart, really? It's that feeling, that state where your inner world is so fragile that any little bit of outside pressure makes it feel like it's shattering into a million pieces. The biggest problem isn't the initial sting of getting hurt, it's the inability to recover. You just get stuck in this loop of frustration and anger long after the thing that caused it is over. And here's how that fragility often shows up in our lives. Do any of these ring a bell for you? Trying to please absolutely everyone? Falling into that self-pity trap? Or just overthinking everything and creating drama in your own head? Or how about perfectionism, where anything less than perfect feels like a total disaster? You know, even that blind, over-the-top optimism can be a sign. It's kind of like a defense mechanism to avoid even thinking about failure. All right, enough about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. Section 2, the antidote. So if a glass heart is all about fragility, then psychological resilience, well, that's like a muscle for your mind. And the best part, just like any other muscle, you can train it. And this right here is the absolute key. Resilience is not some magical trait you're either born with or you're not. It is a skill. It's your ability to adapt, to bounce back when things get tough. It's not just about surviving stress, it's about learning from it and growing. And that is a total game changer, because it means anybody can build it. This chart just lays it out perfectly. It's about the mental shift you need to make. Are you on the left side, with that fixed mindset, where failure feels like a final verdict on who you are? Or are you shifting to the right, to the growth mindset? Once you make that shift, resilience becomes a muscle you can build. Failure becomes useful feedback, and challenges, well, they become your best opportunities to get stronger.
Okay, so let's get practical. How do we actually build this mental muscle? In Section 3, we're going to break it all down into 3 core pillars that'll help you rebuild your inner foundation.
Now, the first pillar is surprisingly simple. Learn to accept mediocrity. I know. In a world that's obsessed with being extraordinary, this sounds kind of revolutionary, right? But it just means letting go of that crushing pressure to be perfect and instead finding real value in the ordinary. Happiness isn't always about those huge, grand achievements. So often, it's hidden in the small moments. That first sip of coffee in the morning, a good chat with a friend, the satisfaction of finishing a small task. Just accepting that you're a normal, flawed human being gives you so much freedom. Pillar number 2 is all about focusing on the present moment. A glass heart often gets shattered by worrying about the past or freaking out about the future. 2 things we have zero control over. This super simple mindfulness exercise helps pull you back to the only thing you can control, right now. And it's not about clearing your mind of all thoughts. It's just about noticing them without getting carried away. Just 5 minutes a day can start training your brain to stay right here, right now. And the third pillar is emotional awareness. Here's the thing. Resilient people don't ignore their feelings. They actually listen to them. Your emotions are just data. Anger might be telling you, hey, a boundary was just crossed. Sadness could be a signal that you need a little comfort or connection. And frustration, that's just telling you that something isn't working. When you start seeing emotions as signals instead of enemies, you can respond with wisdom instead of just reacting blindly. So, let's put these pillars to the test, shall we? In Section 4, we're going to take a super relatable situation, failing an exam, and see exactly how resilience works in the real world. So, you got a bad grade. Now, the resilient response isn't to pretend you don't care. Step 1 is to just accept it. Let yourself feel disappointed, sure, but don't let it become your identity. This is where you use something called cognitive reappraisal, which is just a fancy way of saying you change the story you tell yourself. Instead of, I am a failure, you switch to, okay, This result is just feedback that my study method needs an upgrade. That little reframe lets you analyze what happened without blaming yourself, and then, boom, you can act. You just focus on the very next thing you can do.
And this, right here, is how you turn that vague analysis into a concrete plan. Instead of just feeling bad, you get super specific. What kind of mistake was it? Did you not get a concept? Was it a silly calculation error? Did you just run out of time? See, once you identify the what, the next action becomes crystal clear. This tool is what takes you from that feeling of helpless frustration to empowered action. It's all about solving the problem, not just dwelling on it. And that brings us to our final section. We're going to zoom all the way out here and completely change how we think about being flawed or broken in the first place.
I absolutely love this concept, kintsugi. It's the Japanese art of fixing broken pottery with a special lacquer that's mixed with powdered gold. The whole philosophy behind it is that the piece is actually more beautiful because it was broken. The cracks aren't things to be hidden, they're highlighted with gold, and they become this celebrated part of the object's unique story. Our failures, our scars, our setbacks, those can be the golden seams that make us stronger, more beautiful, and way more interesting. And that leads us to this final thought. The goal isn't to have a flawless, perfectly clear glass heart that could shatter at any moment. The real goal is to have a stained glass heart. Every single piece, whether it came from joy or sorrow, success or failure, it adds color, it adds texture, and all of those different pieces, held together, create something so much more brilliant and beautiful than a simple, unbroken piece of glass could ever hope to be.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. What crack in your life, right now, isn't something you need to hide, but is actually something you can start to mend with the gold of a little self-compassion and resilience? What part of your unique story can you choose to highlight today?